Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. I am your host, Dana Evans, and today we are talking about how my inner voice has changed my life. And what I mean is how using and tuning into my inner voice has changed my life. It has been a journey, and we will talk about it all on this episode. However, before we get started, I want to can we talk about this week for a second? This past week just rocked me. I actually taught my mind students this morning. Today's Monday, and I asked them, I was like, how was your week? And they were like, oh my God, it was so hard. And so the college students were feeling it. I talked to some friends who were feeling it. I was feeling it. It was just intense. It kicked my butt. Like every day was hard. I had all sorts of weird things happen, and I was just worn out. We had the time change, which I know threw off a lot of people. We had what else did we have? Oh, my computer broke. So my computer died, and I had to take that on Thursday to the Apple store. I dealt with that all day Thursday. Took it to the Apple store, dropped it off. I do not have a computer right now. I am using my husband's computer. And I don't know, I just felt beat up. I also had a reflexology session, which opened up a lot of energy flow. I got some amazing divine guidance during that session. Basically, I was told to start taking aloe juice, to stop having gluten for now, and to start a kitchery cleanse, a spring kitchery cleanse. Kitchery is, it's so delicious. It's one of my favorite practices. I usually do some form of, it's a food cleanse. I do it at the change of season, so spring and fall. But anymore, I don't plan it. I'm usually guided toward when it's right. And as I was on the reflexology table, I was like, my grocery list was being formed. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm having kitchery. And the interesting thing is, usually when I do that cleanse, it's like the hard part is not having alcohol and not having caffeine. But guess what? I'm not really having caffeine right now, just a little bit, and I'm not really having alcohol. So my body was like, let's also do kitchery because we love the food. It's a simple mono diet. So after my session and that guidance, I went to the store and I got all the yum. I got dandelion greens, I got radicchio, I got Swiss chard, kale, broccoli, mushrooms, all of these delicious vegetables. I got vegetable broth, coconut milk, ghee, rice, and lentils. And basically that combination is what makes up your kitchery. So spring is liver season. And so in the spring, it's a really good time to focus on liver supporting foods. And liver loves bitter. So that's a really good reminder. Liver loves bitter. And so I got all of those vegetables. I prepped them yesterday, chopped, washed, containered them all. I made a big batch of rice, a big batch of lentils, and then every day all I have to do is put together the lentils and the rice in a lot of broth and coconut milk and lemon and the cooked vegetables. Oh, I added miso last night, and it's just so nourishing. So my inner voice was like, yeah, we need this. We need to support the liver. We need more cleansing. I'm like, more cleansing. This is the time. It's spring now. The solstice was on Sunday, and it is spring. And we get that natural desire to do spring cleaning. But I want to remind all of us that spring cleaning is not just about your physical space. I've also been doing that. I've been doing some decluttering and organizing. My parents came by this weekend and we cleaned out a lot of junk from the garage. I was called to clean and organize my laundry room and the hall closet, all this stuff. But we also need to clean our bodies, our emotions, our energetic space. All of that requires cleaning as well. I had a cacao ceremony. It's been a busy couple weeks. But I participated in a cacao ceremony yesterday and I just cried, and not like weeping crying, but it was like depths of my soul, like like coming up, releasing, just getting rid of the cobwebs, the tar, the buildup from the winter. Now is such a good time to let it go, to let it go, to let it go. And we can support it in our physical space, in our bodies, in our energetics, in our emotions. And honestly, I think one of the best ways to do some of that inner cleaning is to have an inner voice session. I would love to host an inner voice session for you. Like if you're feeling that desire to do spring cleaning, like let's also look inward and see what it's like to do some inner cleaning. Let's polish it up on the inside. So always, of course, send me an email to Dana at alignful, alignful.com. You can also go to my website, alignful.com, the work with me page. You can book an inner voice session and let's do it. Like, let's clean up. I mean, that's all, of course, the precursor to working with me one-on-one via Insight. We can do 1 month or 3 months of work together, but you can get so much out of a single session as well. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. A lot of emotional clearing, a lot of release, feeling like I've been knocked around a lot between the solstice and the time change. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here and I'm high on cacao and so inspired and excited to just talk about inner voice. Oh, the most magical resource that we all have within us. So, without further ado, here's this week's episode. Okay, so how my inner voice has changed my life. And I spent some time just reflecting on this because one thing I feel like happens when I'm talking about this whole inner voice thing is it's not very tangible. And people are like, what is this? What does it mean? Why do I want to do it? I don't want to go inward. It's too scary. What's going to happen? And so I wanted to take some time and just walk through all of the really magical ways that tuning inward has changed my life. And like anything, it is a practice. It is something that we integrate into our lives and we ease into it. You don't have to dive in. But your inner voice is essentially it's your direct connection to your higher self. So people talk about following your inner intuition, what would your higher self do, that type of thing. Those I think are vague concepts. But what I want you to understand is that is part of you. Your higher self is you. Your inner voice is you. It's your portal to your higher self. It's how you communicate with your higher self. And I picture it as like just a dial. We have the mind channel, 101.3, all mind all the time. And then we have cozy 102.1, which is your inner voice station. And it's just all of us have been stuck on the mind station. There's nothing scary or weird or anything about the inner voice. It's just we're not used to tuning into that channel. But all of us also have access to turn the dial, switch the channel, turn on the inner voice channel, listen to the smooth jazz instead of the aggressive rock emo music. That's all it is. It is you. It's no different than tuning into the mind. It's just a different frequency, a different channel, and you're going to get different information when you turn to the inner voice channel. Because your inner voice is you and it's connected to all of consciousness. So it is a higher self. It is a higher perspective. So you can tune in and channel that information. So your inner voice communicates to you through intuition, right? Through nudges through the universe, through signs, through messages, all of that through your body. It's always communicating to you. And also, that's more of like the passive communication, like it's trying to communicate to you and you may or may not hear it from the mind, right? The mind is on a different channel, so it doesn't always hear the inner voice. That's why it communicates to us through our physical world, because the mind lives in the physical world. But also, you can tune into your inner voice. You can invite it into the conversation. You can ask it questions and you can welcome it to speak up. And when we host inner voice sessions, I have a beautiful process of basically getting you into that receiving mode to receive from your inner voice. So we allow the mind to have a mini vacation. We put the mind aside. It's like you take the mind, you put it on a little mind shelf so we can turn the channel to the inner voice so we can hear and receive. And then you speak as your inner voice. Just like you speak as your mind, you speak as your inner voice when we're in a session. That's why the sessions aren't scary. You're not out of control. It's just you. All I do is facilitate it so that the mind can relax, right? The mind's very stressed. It's very high strung. It's very worried. So I help the mind relax so that it can take a step back. And when the mind quiets and takes a step back, and we invite the inner voice to come through and we're in receiving mode, you can hear all of the wisdom and messages from your inner voice. And you always have access to that. And the more you listen, the more you ask, the more you turn the dial to the inner voice station, the more you'll receive the guidance and wisdom that is not based on fear or stress or expectation from the mind. It is based on what is best for you. Your inner voice is guiding you toward what is best for you at all times. It is in the present moment is how your inner voice operates. So it's not like a future predictor. It's like, what is best for me right now? Is it time for me to quit my job? No. Well, when should I quit my job? The answer, we will let you know. It will be abundantly clear. We will guide you, but not now. So now you can breathe and relax, So it's very present. It's always serving the highest for you and everyone involved. Your mind does not operate that way. Your mind bases things on expectation, shoulds, society, what it sees other people doing, what it thinks a good person should do. It's so conditioned. And it operates and makes decisions often based on fear, whereas the inner voice makes decisions based on love. And love for you, love for all, compassion. So those are just some of the differences. So when I do an inner voice session too, and I invite you to sign up for an inner voice session, it is some of the most impactful, magical work that you will ever do. I cannot yell from the rooftops loud enough that I think everybody needs to experience this because it gives you your power back. It gives you your power back. It brings you back home. And that's just the stepping stone. Of course, so often people get all of this inspiration and insight and wisdom from the inner voice, and then the mind is too strong after the session. It doesn't let the inner voice continue to talk. And it doesn't allow you to follow through on what came through because it's like, no way, this is too easy. It can't be this way. And then it brings you back into your mind spiral. That's why I created the Insight program where we can work together for 1 month or for 3 months and actually combine inner voice work with the mind-based coaching, right? So you can get the insight and wisdom from your inner voice. Then you can clear any beliefs or blocks from the mind, clear and release any emotions that come up, and then actually have accountability to use your mind to take action steps and follow through on the wisdom you receive. Because insight isn't particularly helpful without action, right? And action without the insight from within isn't helpful either, right? Mind-based action that isn't aligned with your highest self, with what's right for you, is going to take you in the wrong direction. So we have to combine the two. And that's what we do in the Insight coaching. And regardless, if you're feeling a spark, like, God, you're so curious about this work, send me a DM on Instagram. My handle's at Dana_Evans. Send me an email, Dana@alignful.com. Reply to my emails, go to my website, alignful.com, like get in touch with me because I would love to share more about this and see if this is a match and a fit for you. I'm so passionate. I am so inspired by this work. And I'm like, we all need this, especially with spring. It just feels like such a beautiful time to come back to self, right? To clean out the cobwebs and to get back in alignment with what's right for you, not based on expectations. So all that is to say is the inner voice has changed my life because I've tuned in, I've listened, I follow the nudges, and I'm letting it guide my life. And because of that, because I'm building that trust in that part of me, I'm seeing all of these positive changes. And I've gone really deep in this over the past year and a half. I trained through Just Lively. I'm a squad leader for her Inner Voice Facilitator training, and I'm immersed in this work, and I believe in it so deeply. And the deeper I go, the more I let my inner voice guide me, the more I shed layers of the ego. I talked about in the intro how I just was like crying and releasing this weekend, and truthfully all of last week, is because the more you listen from within, the more you shed the expectations of without. And the ego it cries. It needs to let go. It needs to be shed. And sometimes it's sad to lose part of yourself, but you're also embodying new parts of yourself. So there's some grief that comes with that. But to release also feels so good and refreshing. It's not like a pain cry that just like you sit with forever. It's like you cry, you let go, and then you let in. And honestly, like as I shed this, as I step in, I have more insight, inspiration, pure joy, and compassion in just my everyday life. Like that's just like an overall, like what's happening. And I want to share some of my 10 like major changes that I've seen in my life as a direct result of me connecting with my inner voice regularly. So first is anxiety. So my anxiety is like all but gone. I used to have a lot and I was in my head a lot. And now when I start to slip into this place, I slow down, I exhale, I tune into my body and allow that inner guidance to come through. And I always feel more calm. So it's like anxiety can still bubble up, but it no longer controls me. Oh, approval and validation. So I no longer look to others for approval and validation the same way that I did. Of course, we all want that, but it doesn't control my actions and it doesn't control my value or worth anymore. If someone doesn't agree with me, that's okay. If they don't like me, that's okay. I don't use others' opinions of me or my work to determine if I'm good or happy or worthy. I know that the only person who knows what is right for me is me. Relationships. My relationships, oh my gosh, are stronger, more truthful than ever. And I do not ask others to provide what only I can do for myself. This was huge for me. My inner voice really helped me see that I was looking outside of myself for love, approval, acceptance, encouragement, like celebration. I basically wanted other people to tell me I'm great and amazing. And I still love that, of course. But what I saw was every time I feel like I need that from others is an opportunity for me to give that to myself. And see, my inner voice always sees that of me. My inner voice is like, you're doing such a good job. You're amazing. You're beautiful. Good job. We love you. It's okay. You're safe. You're doing well. Whereas the mind sees all the things that you're not doing, right? Well, you got that done, but you still have more to do. Well, you forgot about this. Well, you didn't really do this good enough. And you really should do this. Haven't you done that? All of this stuff. So by tuning into my inner voice, seeing myself through the eyes of compassion, I actually get from myself what I wanted others to provide. And so because of that, my relationships don't have attachments that way, right? They're not conditional because I love and see myself unconditionally and I can show up for others in that same way. But I don't attach my value to how they see me. Similarly is boundaries. I easily set boundaries for myself and communicate those to others. I don't feel guilty about not doing something if I know it's not right for me. and I can easily and confidently say yes or no. This is a combination of my inner voice and also using my emotional authority through my human design. And I know if I'm making a decision that's based on an inner knowing versus like an external expectation. And it makes a big difference. Again, this kind of piggybacks off of that is saying yes or no. Aligned cancellations. I have a whole podcast episode about this. I think it's in the 40s. So it's an early podcast called Aligned Cancellations. We'll link that in the show notes. When something doesn't feel right, I am able to speak to it and change my plans. I am not attached to what the original plan was. More often than not, the person I had plans with is also happy about this. They also have a reason that the cancellation works. I did this last week. I mean, this happens all the time, but I was supposed to have a call with my good friend. It was a Sunday evening or 2 weeks ago. And I just was not feeling it. And I kept going through the day thinking, okay, I'll probably feel like it later. I really want to catch up with her. And then it was like 45 minutes before our call or an hour. And I was like, it doesn't feel good. So I bit the bullet and my mind had all these stories like, oh, she's going to think you're flaky. You always do this. She's going to think you don't care about her. All these stories. I said, I have to follow this guidance. And then I messaged her. I said, hey, look, I'm happy to uphold our date to have the call. However, I wanted to see how you're feeling because I feel really worn down and I don't exactly have the energy to have a call. Is there another time this week that would work better? Or do you just want to do it today? See, integrity, right? I'm willing to uphold, but it's more important for me to communicate that it's going to be easier for me to not uphold. It'll feel better. She replied, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. I had a horrible night's sleep last night. All I want to do is relax this evening, and I would love to reschedule. Thank you. When we tune in, because if something is not aligned or right for you, how can it also be aligned and right for someone else? Oh my gosh. I go into all of this in episode 44 of the podcast, Align Cancellations. Rest, work, and flow. This one I'm still tuning into, but I rest when tired. I work when inspired. That is my mantra. I do not follow this all the time. My mind is very attached to work and what it means. So this is still one that I'm really breathing into to listen. But I have shifted my daily work cycle and have transitioned to more of a monthly work cycle aligned with my menstrual cycle. And my inner voice always will tell me what's needed. Always. I mean, this happened last week. Last week, I had 2 days where it was like Monday and Tuesday, I worked and I kind of overworked a little bit, but I was really inspired and I went at it and I did a bunch of stuff. And then I was like, oh no, I probably worked too much. But then Wednesday I did a half day. And then lo and behold, Thursday and Friday, Thursday I did no work. I was so exhausted, so worn out. I couldn't do any work. My computer wasn't working. And then Friday was oh my God. I was dealing with the computer. I had to go to the Apple store. I was on the phone. It was all this stuff. I was so cranky. I didn't do much work. But I see now that my inner voice gave me that permission to just go at it Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And then I had all that space Thursday and Friday to just not work. And it was okay. And I didn't feel guilty or stressed about it because I know that my energy ebbs and flows and so does my work. And it's okay. I probably got more done on Monday and Tuesday with that inspired action than I would have if I was trying to drudge through the rest of the week. Self-trust. Holy smokes. I trust myself. It sounds so simple, but I truly, truly trust myself. I trust my feelings, my instincts, my visions, my dreams, my intuition, all of it. I do not write myself off or deny the signs, and it is incredibly freeing. Connection. I feel so connected, not only to myself, but in something bigger than me. I've never been a religious person, But I do believe that we are more than just human minds floating on this rock. The beauty of the inner voice is that it is you, and it is part of the larger collective consciousness. It is very powerful to tap into this source because you feel this connection of like, even when you're alone, even when you feel like you're isolated, when you tune into that inner part of you, your inner voice, you feel the energetic connection to all that is. It's really, really special because that's a big story for me is when I start to feel alone and unseen by other people, I start to feel disconnected. And then I start to pull away from other people, right? Coaches recognizing her own patterns. I start to pull away from other people, which of course then reinforces the story that I'm alone and disconnected from people. But having my inner voice there always brings me back. It brings me back to self and to the greater connection. It's really powerful. Exercise. I have a whole blog post actually that we'll put in the show notes as well about my journey with movement. And I no longer stress about whether to work out or not. If I feel inspired to move, I do. If I don't, I don't. I don't push through. I don't force a workout. I trust if I had a workout planned and I wake up and it doesn't feel right, that my body has other plans. Because just because we're not working out, it doesn't mean we're not moving our body. In fact, one of the biggest things that I have experienced with hosting inner voice sessions, hosting emotional clearings that come with that, and through my own journey, the sloth experiment in particular, is releasing emotions, releasing, as we call them, the emotional bean bags, the trapped emotions and energy in your body that needs to be processed, which we process through the inner voice session. Releasing that is not just energetic baggage, it's physical baggage. People experience more tone in your face, more muscle tone, more lightness in the body, more fluid movement by moving the cells. So exercise is not the only way that we can get in shape, quote unquote. And man, it's amazing. It's so freeing. And I'm in this journey now where this month of March, like I was guided to like come back to self in so many ways. And I was guided to actually start my yoga practice again, which I haven't done for really at all consistently for over a year. And it feels so good. And I'm excited. I did yoga this morning. Like I'm excited to do it and it feels right. And of course, also a bunch of things have aligned that have made the practice more easy. Like a teacher that I love was hosting a 4-week workshop. And I found out that she has this membership and I had more space. I'm not having alcohol. So it's like yoga in the evening is really accessible. And it's like, again, when you're aligned and in the flow, things happen really naturally and easily. And it's just so enjoyable for me to be moving my body this way right now. But before it wasn't. And so I didn't. And similar to food, I eat what I want when I want. It's not based on traditional cravings, rather a deep knowing of what my body needs in any given moment. And there's really no guilt at all associated with food. I mean, sometimes I eat grilled cheese for like a week straight. It's weird. It happens every few months. It's either nachos or grilled cheese or quesadillas. And I like need that for a week. And then I like don't want it anymore. My inner voice was guiding me to make a tahini latte. And I was like, is this a thing? So I like Googled it and I'm like, oh yeah. Only then after I had been eating tahini for a week and I was obsessed with these tahini lattes. I was like tahini, maple syrup, coconut milk, tocos, which is like vitamin E powder, cinnamon, and tahini blended together with my decaf coffee. Oh my God, it was so delicious. And I was obsessed with it. I was like, what a funny thing. Like, I've never thought of this. And then my friend said, oh, that's a great way to get sesame seeds when you're seed cycling. And I was like, what? Well, if you're a woman and you're following your menstrual cycle, there's this concept called seed cycling where the first 14 days of your cycle, you eat, I forget which ones, but I know it's sesame seeds and like pumpkin seeds. And then the second half of your cycle, you have like flax seeds and sunflower seeds. And don't quote me on this, Google seed cycling. Minimalist Baker has a great seed cycling recipe. Then I was like, oh my God, my inner voice guided me to buy tahini. It wanted me to have it in my coffee like every single day. I looked at my cycle and I was in the first 14 days of my cycle, which is when you're supposed to have sesame seeds. I was like, like amazing. That's what it means to follow true cravings that are aligned with your body. And like I said in the intro, maybe I did, I heard during my reflexology session on Wednesday last week is like, it's time to do a khichdi cleanse. It's time to eat khichdi. And it was like, you want dandelion greens and broccoli and radicchio, all these liver supporting foods and broth and rice and lentils. And like, now you're going to eat khichdi for a week. And I was like, okay. And it's delicious and perfect. And like, we can really align our food, not with a diet, but with the cycle of our bodies, right? With what it's time to eat. It told me too to release gluten. I'm like, okay, I've been eating gluten like heavily for months now. And it was fine. But now my body's like, no more. I'm like, okay, bye. Ebb and flow. It told me to release alcohol. And I've actually had alcohol a couple times this month because, again, I don't get stressed about right and wrong. Your inner voice is not black and white. So those are, by the way, all my 10 areas. So I'll just end with that. But your inner voice is not black and white. So I think we get really caught up in like challenges. Do this every day for a month. Don't do this every day for a month. And it's like so aggressive. It's very mind-based. And your inner voice, it allows you to ebb and flow. So after like a really intense weekend, last weekend of releasing and opening and like a lot of awareness, I did a retreat called Inward Bound with Jess Lively. And it was for all of the new inner voice facilitators that are coming on. And I'm part of that program. I'm a squad leader. So I was in that and it was so intense. And I was like, oh, by the end of the day, Sunday, like I had done so much crying, so much releasing, so much witnessing, so much presence. My mind was exhausted. It broke down quite a bit. I was exhausted. I was just spent. Like that type of work is, it is intense. It's subtle, but it's intense. And then I was like, I want a drink. Like I need to numb out. I am overstimulated and overly aware. And I checked in with my inner voice because, of course, my mind's like, no, you said you weren't going to have any alcohol. Now you're a bad person. And you're, right? Mind stories. And I said, inner voice, can I have alcohol? And inner voice said, of course. Enjoy. Oh. So I made a classic daiquiri. Rum, honey, or simple syrup, and lime. And I sat there and it was snowing. I had my cocktail. Mia climbed on my lap. I had candles lit. I could not read or watch TV. My mind was too stunned. I was just staring out the window. And then I started crying in gratitude. I just felt so still, so complete, so joyful, so content. And let me tell you, that experience of having a drink is very different than a lot of my day-to-day experiences where I'm stressed and angry and I just want to have a drink to escape it all. And it's okay. It is okay. And I enjoyed every freaking drop of that cocktail. It was delightful. So again, it helps us soften, but it also helps us heighten our awareness. I asked my inner voice, because I did have a drink again this week, and I asked my inner voice, I was like, so what's the deal? Like, I thought I wasn't supposed to have alcohol this month. And my inner voice said, it's not about not having alcohol. It's about feeling what it feels like to not have alcohol and choosing what it feels like when you do. I was like, oh. I took that to mean that I had gone into unconscious alcohol consumption and my inner voice just wanted to bring me back to consciousness, to presence, to awareness, to choice. I don't have to have it every day, but I can have it intentionally and mindfully and enjoy it. And that goes with all food. So that is, I hope you enjoyed that. So let me just read you. These are my key areas: anxiety, approval, validation, relationships, boundaries, aligned cancellations, rest, work, and flow, self-trust, connection, exercise, and food. So are any of these areas of your life areas that you would like to have more connection to, more ease with, more enjoyment? Would you like to transform to have more effortless relationship with these areas of your life? And if so, let me tell you, the answer is not out there. It is inside. The answer is not in another diet, another meal plan, right? It's not in another exercise regimen. It's not in anything but within you, right? My inner voice always says it's not without, it's within. And I invite you to go within, right? I invite you to book an inner voice session with me. I invite you to listen, to close your eyes, to exhale, and to hear. Invite your inner voice to speak up. I invite you to join me in the Insight program, 1-to-1. Let's go there. Like, let me take your hand. It's okay. It's safe. We will deep dive together and I'll be your buoy, right? Nothing will get too dark or too intense. I hold the light for you, and your inner voice guides you to release. It guides you towards what's right. It guides you towards joy and peace and ease and delight. And it guides you without the fight. We release, we release, we release. And then you find peace. That was my inner voice, I guess. A little message to you all. I love you. I love you. I love you. I see this joy for you. I see these 10 areas and so many more that you too can transform. I hope you have the most beautiful, magical week. And again, reach out to me on Instagram at Dana_Evans. Send me an email to dana@alignful.com. On my website, alignful.com. Let's chat. If you're curious, I'm not here to pressure anyone to do anything. I only want to work with you if it's aligned, right? For both of us. So we can get on a call and let's just talk. I want to know where you're at and if it's time, and your inner voice will nudge you. Don't ignore the nudge, my friends. Well, you can, and you'll learn lessons from that for sure. Anyway, I hope you have the most magical week. I love you, and I will see you next week on the Tuning In podcast. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.